The Gulf crisis began in June of 2017 when Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Bahrain and Egypt from outside the GCC states, outside the Gulf Cooperation Council, boycotted Qatar and blockaded it. That crisis basically ended in January of 2021 when the GCC states met in Al Ula in Saudi Arabia and ended their differences, supposedly. Today, we can say that the crisis is over. Although there are some issues that still linger, some countries do not agree with everything that other countries do, but there are efforts at finding common ground, so to speak. For instance, the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman participated in the opening ceremony of the World Cup in Doha, Qatar. President of the UAE, Mohammed bin Zayed, visited the ruler of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. The Egyptian President, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, also met with Sheikh Tamim. Each GCC state has its own policy, obviously. They all, however, fall within the GCC institutions. They like to do common things. They like to have common policies, but they still have policy differences on many issues. For instance, they have policy difference on Iran. Some GCC countries, for instance, Saudi Arabia and the UAE and Bahrain, consider Iran not to be too friendly, consider it to be a little a threat. Others do not consider it to be so. Qatar, Oman, and Kuwait consider Iran to be a neighbor, to be accommodated, to be dealt with. Saudi Arabia tried to start a dialogue with Iran, but that dialogue does not seem to be going anywhere. The UAE has economic relations with Iran, but yet still considers it to be a threat to it. We also know that Iran is an occupation of 3 UAE islands in the Arabian Gulf, and the UAE is not willing to accommodate Iran as long as this dispute is going on. Bahrain obviously is rather antagonistic and considers Iran to be a very big threat. Some GCC countries have normalized with Israel. We're talking about the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. They signed what is called the so-called Abraham Accords in 2020, and they also joined Morocco and Sudan in signing these accords. Other states do not think that normalizing with Israel is a good thing to do. We also have to remember that the regimes in the Arab world, if they want to normalize with Israel, that doesn't mean that the people of the Arab states are really very good with normalization. They object to normalization with Israel. UAE and Bahrain are basically the only two from the GCC that have signed this normalization, but there are relations, not necessarily diplomatic or political relations between other GCC states and Israel. Oman, for instance, received the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu a few years back. Qatar has accommodated Israeli citizens and journalists who came to the World Cup. Kuwait is definitely antagonistic to relations with Israel or normalization with Israel. All GCC states have good relations with the United States. They, however, are trying to find independence, so to speak, from relying solely on the United States. They tried a few years back to have relations with other states, China, India, Russia, the European Union, so they can lessen their reliance on the United States. So in that they use a policy called strategic hedging. They instead of only having relations with the United States, they try to branch out and have relations with other states, because they themselves are economic actors. They sell energy products, so they want as many friends around the world as possible. On the other hand, I personally believe that the relationship with the United States will continue because the United States is the premier security assistance provider to the GCC states. On the other hand, they will also seek economic relations and maybe other relations with other states.